All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. If you're prepping for the UPSC, Gaza is definitely going to be a hot topic, and it's probably going to pop up in both mains and prelims.
Sure.
This whole situation is so complex, and it has, global implications.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what we're going to be looking at today.
Yeah.
We've got a whole stack of reports from the Indian Express mainly.
Okay.
And our mission is to, cut through all the noise and give you guys those key insights to help you ace those exams.
Love it. So what's really striking here is the sheer range of proposed solutions for Gaza's reconstruction.
Yeah.
I mean, we're seeing everything from relocation plans to massive rebuilding projects.
Right.
And each of them has its own set of champions and critics.
Yeah.
The U.S., Israel, Arab nations, the Palestinian Authority, they all have wildly different ideas about the way forward.
Yeah, you're right. And to even begin to understand this, we need to start with we need to start with Trump's proposal. The idea of relocating Gazans and building a Riviera.
Yeah.
I mean, that definitely raised some eyebrows.
Absolutely. And it's important to unpack what that Riviera concept actually entails.
Okay.
It seems to be, a mix of economic development, potentially focused on tourism and infrastructure.
Okay.
But to be honest, the specifics are really vague.
Yeah.
And you got to consider this. How would such a plan impact the existing population, the infrastructure, and the already fragile environment? It's a proposal that's just loaded with questions.
Not to mention the political implications.
Oh, totally.
Netanyahu's initial support for the idea, likely resonated with his right-wing base.
Yeah.
But the international community wasn't as enthused.
Right.
And, of course, the Palestinians outright rejected it.
Yeah.
It's hard to imagine any relocation plan gaining traction without their consent.
You're absolutely right. And even within the U.S., you have figures like Rubio trying to clarify the stance, suggesting that relocation would only be temporary.
Right. Focused on facilitating reconstruction.
Okay.
But, that clarification didn't really do much to quell the criticism or address the core issue. The deep-rooted Palestinian attachment to their land and the fear of displacement.
Okay, so Trump's proposal was met with resistance. But what about the alternatives? The Arab nations, particularly Egypt and Jordan, they seem to be leading the charge for a different approach.
Yeah, they've made it clear that they're firmly against any forced displacement of Palestinians.
Okay.
And they advocate for their right to remain in Gaza.
Right.
We even saw a symbolic gesture from the King of Jordan.
Oh, yeah.
Offering to host 2,000 sick Palestinian children for medical treatment.
Okay.
Yeah.
That gesture, though well-intentioned, it did spark some debate within the Arab world, highlighting the differing views on how to handle this crisis.
Yeah, exactly. There's no monolithic Arab perspective.
Right.
But what's crucial is that at the Arab summit in Riyadh,
there was a unified stance against relocation.
Okay.
Instead, they put forward a comprehensive reconstruction plan.
Interesting.
Spearheaded by Egypt.
Okay, so for our UPSC aspirants, this Egyptian plan is something worth noting.
Oh, yeah.
Can you break down some of the key details for us?
Certainly. It's a 3-phase plan spanning all the way to 2030.
Wow.
With a pretty hefty price tag of $53 billion.
Wow, that's a lot.
The initial phase focuses on addressing the immediate needs.
Okay.
Like clearing debris, demining areas, and setting up temporary shelters for those displaced.
Okay.
And then they move on to the long game.
Okay.
Rebuilding vital infrastructure, constructing housing,
right,
and creating job opportunities to revitalize the economy.
So that sounds incredibly ambitious.
Yeah.
Especially given the scale of the destruction.
Mm-hmm.
What's the long-term vision for governance in Gaza under this plan?
The ultimate aim is to transfer control of both Gaza and the West Bank to the Palestinian Authority.
Wow.
To ensure transparency and accountability. Okay.
The plan calls for a World Bank-supervised trust fund to manage the influx of aid.
Okay.
And an international peacekeeping force to maintain stability during the reconstruction process.
Okay. Wow. So you've got a phased approach, a clear funding mechanism, and even provisions for security and governance?
Totally.
Did this plan manage to get everyone on board?
Surprisingly, yes.
Wow.
It received unanimous endorsement from Arab leaders, the Palestinian Authority, and even Hamas.
Really?
Which is significant considering their often conflicting positions.
Yeah, for sure.
On paper, it seems like a really solid roadmap for rebuilding Gaza.
Okay.
And potentially paving the way for a more stable future.
So we have a plan that seems to have garnered broad support.
Yeah.
You'd think that's a win, right? Problem solved.
Well, not so fast.
Okay.
There are two key players missing from this consensus.
Oh.
The U.S. and Israel,
right.
Their stance
okay.
and the reasons behind it
are crucial to understanding why the situation is so complex.
Okay, so let's get into that then.
Yeah.
That's a critical point.
Yeah.
Even with the Arab world, the Palestinian Authority and Hamas seemingly on the same page,
right.
U.S. and Israeli buy-in is essential for any plan to truly work.
Oh, for sure.
So where do they stand on this Egyptian-led reconstruction initiative?
Well, it's complicated.
Oh.
The U.S., at least under the current administration, seems to be sticking to the relocation idea,
right.
albeit with those clarifications from Rubio.
Yeah.
And Israel has its own set of concerns, primarily focused on the Palestinian Authority's ability to govern effectively and prevent a resurgence of Hamas's influence.
Right.
They also have long-standing issues with UNRWA, the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, which plays a significant role in Gaza.
So we're seeing those historical tensions and mistrust bubbling up again.
Exactly.
It's like every step towards a solution uncovers another layer of complexity.
Yeah, and it's further complicated by the issue of the hostages taken during the recent conflict.
Yeah.
Trump's ultimatum for their return added another layer of pressure and heightened tensions between all parties.
Yeah.
Add to that the stalled prisoner exchange and the blockage of international aid, and you have a perfect storm of mistrust.
It paints a pretty grim picture.
Yeah.
It sounds like we're stuck in a stalemate.
Yeah.
With each side entrenched in their positions.
It is.
But for those of us trying to understand this conflict, especially our UPSC aspirants, we need to look beyond the headlines.
Right.
What are the underlying historical factors that have led to this seemingly intractable situation?
That's where things get really interesting.
Yeah.
To grasp the current impasse, we need to understand the decades-long Israel-Palestine conflict.
Yeah.
A struggle deeply rooted in issues of security, land ownership, and national identity.
Okay.
This isn't simply about rebuilding physical structures. It's about addressing deeply embedded historical grievances.
Right.
And finding a way to move forward.
The issue of Palestinian displacement is particularly sensitive, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It's not just about finding people new homes.
Right.
It's about their historical connection to the land, their sense of belonging, and their right to self-determination.
You got it. And so
any proposed solution that ignores those factors is bound to face resistance.
Right.
Not just from the Palestinians themselves, but from the wider Arab world.
Yeah, as we've seen.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that this conflict has regional and even global implications.
Totally.
So we have this incredibly intricate web of historical baggage, political maneuvering, and humanitarian concerns.
Yeah.
It can feel overwhelming, even for those of us following this issue closely.
Absolutely.
But for our UPSC aspirants,
yeah,
there's a crucial question. Where do we go from here?
Yeah.
What are the potential pathways to peace?
However fragile they might seem right now.
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
And it's one that policymakers and analysts have been grappling with for decades.
Okay.
One idea that keeps resurfacing is the establishment of a stronger, more unified Palestinian Authority.
Okay.
Led by the more moderate Fatah faction in both Gaza and the West Bank.
So essentially a single, cohesive Palestinian government.
Exactly.
But hasn't Fatah lost a considerable amount of public trust over the years?
That's a valid point.
You think so?
Yeah, they've been criticized for corruption, ineffectiveness, and a disconnect from the needs of ordinary Palestinians, especially the younger generation.
Yeah.
If they want to be seen as legitimate leaders, capable of guiding the Palestinian people towards a peaceful future, they have a lot of work to do to rebuild that trust.
And what about Hamas?
Yeah.
They control Gaza.
Right.
They have a significant following.
Huge.
And they're not just going to disappear overnight. How does their presence factor into any potential peace process?
Hamas is a major wild card in this equation.
Okay.
Their militant activities not only pose a security threat to Israel, but they also make life incredibly difficult for Palestinians living in Gaza. Any lasting peace agreement will require finding a way to disarm Hamas and integrate them into the political process, which is easier said than done.
It sounds like there are significant challenges on the Palestinian side.
Yeah.
But what about Israel? What role do they need to play in finding a way forward?
It's important to remember that Israel also has a lot to gain from a peaceful resolution.
I see.
They've built a remarkable nation with a thriving democracy, a robust economy, and incredible technological advancements.
Wow.
Imagine the potential if they could redirect the resources currently allocated to security and defense towards other sectors.
It's an intriguing thought.
Yeah.
Could Israel, with its commitment to democracy and innovation, become a model for the entire region?
Yeah.
Showing that peaceful coexistence is possible, even in the face of historical animosity.
That's certainly an aspiration worth striving for.
Okay.
But achieving it requires a fundamental shift in mindset on both sides.
Okay.
A move away from the zero-sum mentality.
Right.
Where one side's gain is automatically perceived as the other side's loss.
It sounds like we need fresh thinking, innovative solutions.
For sure.
And a willingness to move beyond the entrenched narratives of the past.
Totally.
But is that even realistic?
Wow.
Given the decades of animosity and mistrust?
It's a daunting challenge, no doubt.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. We're in the 21st century. We have to believe that we're capable of finding more creative, more humane ways to resolve conflicts than simply repeating the patterns of the past.
So where do we start?
Wow.
What are the concrete steps that could potentially break this cycle of violence and mistrust and lead to a more hopeful future for both Israelis and Palestinians?
One framework that's already in place, though it's faced countless setbacks, are the Oslo Accords, signed back in the 1990s.
Right.
They laid the groundwork for a two-state solution.
Okay.
The idea of Israel and Palestine coexisting as independent sovereign nations.
The two-state solution, despite its challenges, is still considered by many to be the most viable path towards peace.
Yeah.
But for it to work, wouldn't you need strong, visionary leaders on both sides?
Absolutely.
Leaders willing to take risks, make compromises, and maybe even challenge their own hardliners.
You've hit the nail on the head.
I think so.
Leadership is absolutely crucial.
Okay.
And not just from politicians, but from all sectors of society.
Right.
Religious figures, business leaders, artists, activists, everyday people who are willing to build bridges and challenge the status quo.
So it's not just about top-down diplomacy. It's about fostering a bottom-up movement for peace.
Yeah.
Built on dialogue, understanding, and a shared vision for the future.
Exactly. And that's where you, our listeners, especially our future policymakers and diplomats preparing for the UPSC exams, come in.
That's right.
This is more than just an exam topic.
Yeah.
This is about the lives of millions of people and the future of an entire region.
It's a sobering thought that the path to peace in Gaza, or anywhere for that matter, relies on so many moving parts.
Yeah.
And it really underscores the importance of informed and engaged citizens.
For sure.
Particularly those aspiring to shape policy and diplomacy.
Yeah, absolutely. For our UPSC aspirants.
Right.
This deep dive into the Gaza situation should be more than just memorizing facts and figures. It's about understanding the nuances, historical baggage, the competing interests, and the potential consequences of different policy choices.
We've explored a lot.
Yeah.
And the various proposals on the table, relocation versus reconstruction, the historical context of the conflict, and the potential for a two-state solution.
Right.
It's clear there are no easy answers.
No.
But I think one thing is for sure, the status quo in Gaza is unsustainable.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
The cycle of violence and mistrust benefits no one.
Right.
It's a humanitarian crisis, a security nightmare, and a drain on resources that could be used for development and progress.
So for all our listeners, but particularly for those preparing for the UPSC exams, here's a thought-provoking question to consider.
Right.
Can a two-state solution be realistically achieved? Given the current political climate and the deep-rooted mistrust? And if so, what would need to change for meaningful progress to occur?
It's a tough question. No doubt, but it's one worth wrestling with because the answers, or even the attempt to find them, could shape the future of the entire region.
Wow.
And potentially set a precedent for resolving other protracted conflicts around the world.
This has been a truly insightful deep dive into the complexities of the Gaza situation.
It has.
We've explored various perspectives, analyzed the challenges, and hopefully equipped you, our listeners, with a deeper understanding of this critical issue.
Remember, Knowledge is power.
That's right.
Especially when it comes to shaping a more peaceful and just world.
A big thank you to the Indian Express for providing the in-depth reporting that made this deep dive possible.
Absolutely.
And for all our listeners, especially our dedicated UPSC aspirants, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment if you have any further queries.
Yes, please.
Until next time, keep diving deep.